Hello there. I was just talking to myself. I forgot to turn on the video. My name is Anya Devine. I'm a painter and an art teacher, and I've been at this for quite a while now. This giving time to living creatively, I suppose, and doing my best to bring a bit of creativity into every day. And with this in mind, I've been doing quite a few YouTube videos. I'm saying this because although many of you will be tuned in for a long time, some people here, it'll be their first time. And so I'm just wanting to let you know that you're most welcome. And it's a pleasure to share with you what's going to happen here. Let's see. Now, as well as that, I wanted to say that this is actually a carry-on from a Zoom call that I had with my online flower painting group. Normally I record those and I forgot to record it. Anyway, I said to you that I'd continue, so I'm speaking to the Zoom people now. I said I'd continue doing something more to this painting after you left this morning, so this afternoon. So that's what I'm going to do. So those of you who didn't see this in advance, it's maybe just unplug the charger. I don't think it's working anyway, the charger. This is a painting that I've done in a few stages of some Gerbera and daisies that I originally started from life a few weeks ago, so they're dead by now, but I still have a photograph on my phone. And one of the things that I love about painting is mixing media. And what I particularly wanted to show today was the value of using oil over acrylic. And so most of this painting is done in acrylic. Everything all here is acrylic and maybe ink and collage, bits of collage as well. But there's no oil paint until this morning, just a little section here. And I don't know if you can actually see it clearly. I'll maybe bring it over to you a bit closer, but there is something a bit more lush about the oil paint. So the dark and light grey here, that's oil paint. The orange is still ink and acrylic, and so is the yellow and the green of the plants. But there's something in introducing oil paint that brings more substance, I feel, and gives the possibility of carving into life a little bit more intensely the brightness of these beautiful flowers. So up there is also oil, the dark grey, which I actually made by mixing, mixing ultramarine blue with burnt umber. This is the burnt umber, I'll just show you. Burnt umber there. And it's oil paint, as I say. So I mixed burnt umber with ultramarine blue, and I made that dark greyish colour, which is not unlike Payne's grey. And then I put white into it. I made a more blue consistency and put white into it to explain the lighter part of the curtain behind the flowers. So my plan now is to carry on with this lighter blue in this panel here. I've put masking tape down in order to mask off the part of the, you can't really see my image, but there was a curtain behind the orange and yellow flowers here, and there were staggered folds in the curtain, and the brightest fold is white, really. It's out here underneath the masking tape behind the yellow flowers. The next colour in was a light blue, which is what I've got there. It's kind of like a duck egg blue colour. See it there? So this will be white behind the flowers. This is a kind of duck egg blue, powder blue maybe. And then that's the grey that I made from the brown and blue mixed together. So it's going from light to dark in the way. And I'm particularly excited, like when I looked at those flowers first, you can't see the picture on the phone unfortunately. When I looked at them first, I was most excited by the brightness at this edge where the light from the window was casting its luminosity onto the yellow flowers. So that's important to me to describe that. And that's why I'm actually bringing the, stuff is falling down here. That's why I'm bringing in the oil paint to this area. And it might be that I'll include it elsewhere too, but just for the purposes of this video, I'll be working on this area mostly, is my plan. Best laid plans though, so wait and see. You never know what'll happen. Normally I would be standing up, but today I'm going easy on myself. I'm sitting down, relaxing. And the fact is, I don't have the still life set up in front of me, so there's no major panic about standing back and everything. Normally I would suggest standing back regularly, but when the image is here, Probably could do it still standing back, but it's a little bit more intimate. I've already done the wild goose phase. What I call the wild goose phase is the beginning stages of the painting where everything is free and it's a response, a visceral, immediate, intuitive response to the presented flowers and jug. And you'll notice here that there's ink, fluorescent pink ink dropping down over the dried red acrylic. And this is one of the amaretto biscuits that I had for Christmas, a wrapper from one of those. That's just some, I think it's maybe wrapping paper stuck on. So all of this to explain the wild goose attitude at the beginning. You can make a wild goose tame, but you can't make a tame goose wild. So this is the wild goose, and I'm beginning to extract something more considered that you might say is taming the goose a little bit. But unless it's wild, you can't make a tame goose wild, you see. So you're starting tame. It's maybe it's not impossible, but generally I think it's a lot easier to bring in life and energy early on and then respond to that as you go through the painting. One lady in a workshop I did in Wales said to me she has a wild goose and has never managed to tame it, so there are exceptions to every rule. Hang on a second till I bring you a little bit closer there. I am aiming to get a better setup, tripod and all that, so we'll watch this space. But for now, I'll just do another few minutes on this area here. So yeah, so I think I'll probably continue. Let's see. I have this page here so that I could show you the colours that I'm making. Yeah, I mean I'm kind of ignoring the rest of it, which isn't like me really, but I'm just going to go with that and trust that for the purposes of this demonstration it's fine only to focus on this area here. I mean I did do a close-up, you can't see that again, it's annoying. There's a close-up of that area is what's on there, so I can look at that when I want to, but even just bring it in closer there is, okay, you can't see it, so there's no point in me talking about it. I hope that I'm able to be heard now as well. I didn't put my microphone on today, but the bit where you can hear is the speakers on this side, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me all right. Okay, so I've got my flat brushes ready here. I like using the burgundy brush set from Royal and Langnickel. So it's a flat, bright brush, comes to a fine edge. I really like using these because it allows me to make a really clear chipped in mark. So what am I doing now? I'm going to continue using that colour going up the way to finish painting the edge of the curtain. That's not white and it's not really dark, it's in between. So I'm going to make that colour with the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber. Oh, that's my daughter. Lily, I'm doing a video! My daughter who's upstairs, imagine phoning me. Should I put it on Do Not Disturb? Oh, so I've mixed the ultramarine blue and burnt umber together with some titanium white in order to get a colour that's the same as that one, which I think it is. Okay, and actually to be honest, as it goes up the way I find that it gets a little bit darker. So I could always put a little bit more blue and brown into the mix as I go up. But actually it is darker already, isn't it? But even still, I want to put make it a little bit darker because as the curtain turns away from the light, it looks to me like it's getting darker again there. I've actually made it too blue though, that colour now. So I'm going to put more white in it and a little bit more brown so it's not quite so colourful. And I want it to be more distinct from the dark in here. So it's especially important to me to make it lighter again there. A little bit lighter. And as I make that lighter, I've got a bigger version of the same brushes there now. As I make that lighter, I'm going to make this a little bit darker again because it does read as quite a stark contrast. The dark curtain coming up to meet the light fold there. So I'm just going to mix up a brown and blue brown and blue together to look as dark as that. Isn't that lovely and dark? I don't know if you could see it. You couldn't. That's it. Just made it really dark. And now I'm going to use it in here. Oh, that's a bit of a mess now. I've gone over the edge. I was saying to the group earlier that it's a good idea to use the thin paint in the darker areas and the thick paint in lighter areas, because I don't know, it's just with it standing out in relief, thick paint reads more as light. Oh shit, I can't mess that up. I don't know why. Sometimes when you put the tarps on top of the paint, it kind of lifts what's underneath, and it seems to have done that, so it's creating a texture that I wasn't so keen on. But I'm just going to leave it to dry a little bit before adjusting it any further. And in the meantime, I'm making a mid-tone so that I can get back the clarity of this edge again and make it a little bit lighter. I was saying in the photograph the line isn't quite so vertical, but the framer talks to me sometimes about vertical lines and horizontal lines in my paintings, and if I want it to be close, if I want it to be vertical, to make it vertical rather than close to vertical. And I think it does help here to have it vertical rather than slanting off to the left or right, because the flowers themselves are already organic enough and are shown off best, I think, by a little bit of order in the structure underneath. So that's why I went for the verticals. In the background, I think that's okay. I mean, I can bring a bit more of that colour down here as well. And yeah, what I need to do is actually cover over a little bit of the acrylic there now, so that what's seen is the cavity where the stem of the plant will be placed. That's okay. All right. Okay. I'm wondering if it's maybe time now to take off that masking tape. I'll keep going down a little bit more with this line, I think, just to define the curtain. Curtain being in front of the dark bit. Maybe I'll just extend that dark all the way down to the table. Yeah, that's okay. It's not actually to the table, is it? I don't really know where the table starts or stops. But that's just making it a bit nondescript by splashing some tarps on there. Some people use, and I normally do use, zest it instead of tarps. Or you can get other non-solvent like stuff, you know, you can get other more environmentally friendly options, but I had run out of all mine, so I'm using tarps just now, just a little bit. I recycle it though, it goes back, and, you know, put it into jars and it settles to the bottom and you can use it again. Looks to me like the handle is really nice and bright there as well, and so that it might help to make the background a bit darker behind it. To continue the dark of the background down a little bit here, so that the shine of light on the handle can be more easily seen. And there's a nice shine of light on that leaf there as well that I could lift out a bit more if there's dark behind it. A touch there too, just going from light background to slightly darker, and my finger sometimes is the best way of blending stuff. Okay, the quickest way anyway. I don't know if it's best for my fingers. That's it. Alright. And this I'm going to bring down to meet the tabletop, because in the photograph the tabletop is slanting here, but it's not slanting in my painting, and I'm not going to introduce a slant. No, I don't think it's necessary. Just going to do that. And with a rag, I'll lift off my edge. Okay, I want it to be exactly the same all the way down. No, you can't really see down there, can you? Sorry, that's what I've been working on for the last little while. Okay, just losing the edge, finding the edge, losing it. story of my life. Okay, now what's going to happen next? I think I'm going to take off this now, and maybe I'll carry on a little bit more down to the bottom of the tape, so that we have a clear edge where the curtain stops. Okay, fairly clear. So now where the masking tape has been taken off is where I want to paint the white. So I'm going to be putting white here. I'm going to use the cleanish damp brush to push that back a little, because it feels like it's extending forward more than I want it to at the end there. I want it to be straighter. So to be clear now, the colour that's underneath the oil is acrylic and it's staying put. If you were to have an oil underpainting, it would probably still be wet unless you did it weeks ago. But the acrylic underneath stays put, so the yellow is all acrylic and that's going to stay where it is. Now, the yellow is all acrylic, but those marks, those dark marks on there unexpectedly came off the masking tape because I was recycling the masking tape, so that's oil that I can lift off. Okay, now I said that was acrylic. It is acrylic, and so is this, but it's a collaged on piece of acrylic that I wanted to extend beyond the picture plane, because there's something about the flowers that to me themselves extend beyond the picture plane. I'm sorry, I'm just moving you because I realise I'm hitting the chair that the camera is on, and so you're probably getting a lot of shaking there. Sorry about that. Okay, hopefully I won't hit it anymore now. So I'm going to clean my brushes because I want to use the white paint here to chip in the background in between the flowers, the white luminous background light coming in from the window. I'm sitting here with a hot water bottle on my knee underneath an old sheet. The old sheet is being used for touching the brush, so that it's not covered in, after I've cleaned it, I want to wash away the tarp, so I dab the brush into the sheet and it stops. It leaches the tarps out of the brush again, so it's damp, not dripping wet. When I go to pick up the paint, there's a hair in it there. Off the hair, and now I want to get a nice clean area of white and just scoop it up. I say that, my brush isn't completely clean, so it's got a hint of blue in it, but that's actually okay. I feel like it's not a bad thing to have some blue in there too. So I'm going to use the ridge of white on the brush there. I've just scooped up a ridge of white paint and I'm turning it over now, and I'm going to paint the shape of white that I see between the flower petals and the curtain. Come all the way up there, and it also divides some of those petals there. White. So this is really thickly applied paint, just laid on, not brushed on really. It's simply being plastered on, if you like. I think that's a good word to describe this way of working. So really thickly applied plaster. I'm just letting the white come down a little bit further. See, I had an idea that the white beside the yellow would, especially when it's oil paint white, that it would bring a luminosity that I see in the petals as they reach the light here. That brightness rather that way. Okay, so I'm going to find the shape, pick up a little bit more white, and I'm actually going to transfer the white paint to another palette. That's acrylic paint, so it's not going to lift. So I have cleaner white paint here now, and I've scooped up a ridge of it, turning it over. And it's really bright. Here it's really bright, so I'm going to put the lighter paint there. There's a V shape of bright light here in between those petals, and it's like a triangle that comes up there. So triangle above and a V below. It's the shape I'm seeing in there. It's really quite thick. And now I'm going to continue beyond the yellow petal there. There's another area of white background coming in, and it's so bright that it's actually cancelling out the colour of the yellow altogether in places. Now I know I'm working on the masking tape here, but I really don't want to miss the extension of that brightness. I might want to get some lemon yellow colour back out again, because actually the colours of the petals here are very, very bright at the tips. Not so much in here. That's a really good colour for most of the petals, but it's just at the tips before they meet the white background. They become very bright and almost translucent. And I think if I were to mix white with the lemon yellow, it might make it even more translucent, like, you know, the yellow when it's mixed with white actually becomes more yellow. It becomes brighter. So I'm remembering that and thinking that would be a good thing to employ here to create brightness. But I'm still finding the background. I want it not to read as just stepping stones, but actually to look as though to merge with the background itself. Okay. I mean, I'm not getting exactly all the details here, but I'm doing my best to find the character of the flowers by identifying a few of the petals anyway, as they meet the brightness beyond. Okay. And down here there'll be around this petal, around this flower too, there'll be a particular shape carved by the light into the yellow. And I'll go back in with the oil paint and make the deepest darks and the brightest brights evident again in the yellow flowers, after I've done the outline of the white, after I've brought the white background up to meet the edge of the existing yellow. Might need to take the whole drawing board to the framers for this one. Sorry, I start muttering after a while. I was saying I might need to take the whole drawing board to the framers. But then I said, not really. I'm not going to really do that. If I want to extend it further, I'll put some paper there underneath. And we'll see about that then. Might even leave the masking tape and put paper underneath it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is find some yellow, lemon yellow oil paint. And I'm going to put that onto the palette with the white. Maybe put out a bit more. I'm putting it onto the palette with the white. I'll maybe put out a bit more white as well, so that when I mix the two, they're really clean and bright, and I can identify the really bright patches of yellow as they for the tips of the flowers. Before I do that though, I'm going to continue with the white down a little bit further. It's titanium white, as I say. No, lemon yellow. Lemon yellow mixed with titanium white will hopefully give me a luminosity, and the thickness of the paint helps as well to really capture the bright quality of light that falls. I think I need to mix it a bit more. See how that's just like a syrupy, gangly thing that's happened there. So I want to smooth out that. I want it to be a clean plateau of light, so that it really does justice to the brightness falling on the petal, rather than be a textured hairy edge there. And I'll find other places where that could also be used. A light, bright, white and lemon yellow mix. So this is yeah, I suppose it's between the white and the dark of the yellow. This is a yellow that explains the transition between the darks in the yellow and the bright white background. And I think I could also use it up there, where these yellows extend into the background space. And that background is still wet. Can you see that? Not really, sorry. Those two little bits there I've added. So the background, I was saying, is still a bit wet, so I almost need to create a space within which the yellow will sit. Just pushing my finger up there makes a space. And sometimes you don't have to do that, like you could just use the paintbrush, push it up and lift. But you want to be sure that you don't have a lot of black gathered up on the brush after doing that. I've missed a petal here that actually extends over from dark grey into the light grey, and it's more yellow all on its own, so I'm lifting up a bit of pure yellow, lemon yellow there. In fact, it might be more cadmium yellow, but for now it's okay just to identify it with the lemon yellow. Yeah, like some of the anatomy, as I was saying, now isn't exactly the same as what's in the photograph, but it's working out for me. It's okay. So this then is cadmium yellow. I'll show you what that's like once I've squeezed it out. And that's the cadmium yellow there. It's a richer, warmer colour yellow, and I'm going to use that to describe some of these petals down at the bottom of this one that are actually quite dark in relation to the background brightness, and which I hadn't really captured before with the underpainting of acrylic. I'm actually making it a brighter colour than it is really, to be honest. It looks as though it's more yellow ochre down there, but I think it works for the painting for it to be this cadmium yellow colour. Some parts of this are cadmium yellow as well, the underpainting in acrylic. Something really nice in making the same colour in oil as you have in the acrylic underneath, and painting it in relief over the top. As I say now, I think the painting, when I did it, was slightly different from the photograph. Like when I was looking at the still I've set up in real life, I was picking out different things than the photograph has. And so not all the flowers are in the same position. So for example, the gerbera there is slightly different shape. Yeah, I love that gerbera, and I want to put in more of that orange for the gerbera. I'm just going to see if I've got an oil pastel orange. I don't. So I could maybe make an orange. I'm saying I could maybe make an orange, but to be honest, I think the best thing really is to buy a lovely bright orange. Jackson's orange is lovely. They have a Jackson's orange. That's really good. But I don't have that with me today now, so I'm going to wash my brush to clean all the white off it. Because what I want to do is to find the brightness of the orange there. I'm going to wash the brush to clean all the white paint off so that I'm not diluting my lovely orange with white when eventually I find it. It's great actually to have a variety of brushes, a variety of these burgundy brushes, because I'd love to not have to wash the brushes so much in between each move. But anyway, I'm going to make an orange for the gerbera using the cadmium red and cadmium yellow. I think that's a good colour. It's a reddish yellow that I've got. It's a reddish orange that I've got here. Okay. It's maybe not quite as bright. Like the brightest thing that's really satisfying to me is the ink they've used there, acrylic ink. And I'd almost be inclined to stop with the oil paint for a minute while there's still acrylic underneath there, and use that neon acrylic ink to pull out the brightness of that gerbera. So this is what I'm talking about here. And if I put some there and just let it dry, I just want to extend the gerbera up the way a bit further, you see, because in the photo it's higher up. So I'm just going to use the dipper to pull the paint, to pull the ink around the place. I don't want it all dripping down now, so I'll just carry some of the drips over. And I'll probably leave the oil paint for another day in the gerbera, just to let the ink fully dry. catching the drips and turning them before they head off down south. Okay. So I did that because I felt that I'll just redirect some of those drips again. I did that because I felt that the orange that I made wasn't satisfying really to describe the brightness of the Gerbera. It's fine for the shadows, and so I might explain with the orange, I might explain some of the darker bits of the Gerbera behind there. There's a leaf extending beyond. Now I would say that under normal circumstances, and really you would never use acrylic over oil, but I'm putting the oil in between the acrylic ink there and not touching it, and I'm going to wait until the acrylic is fully dry before doing much more detail in it. These bits are just bits that have no wet acrylic underneath, so that's how I can do that. I can work over. I can still work over the dry acrylic with the oil paint. But certainly you don't want to start mixing the wet, fresh ink with the oil paint there. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to go back now to my blue, and using the orange and the blue mixed together, I'm going to make a green colour that'll work for the stems and the underside of the flowers that have that green little patch. Putting some lemon yellow into the mix to make it more green. You can't really see the colour there, but if I put it on the paper, I think you might be able to see it more easily. It hardly looks green, but it is green. And I think it'll work for underneath the flowers here. So there's a dark little upside down kind of umbrella shape from which the petals emerge. And just letting them, just to explain, that seems an important thing. And one side of it is quite dark in relation to the background, and then the other side of it is so the side that's quite dark, I want to make the background behind the dark side lighter, so that the stem stands out as stem. And on this side, it's the stem that's brighter. So I'm going to mix a colour with lemon yellow and ultramarine blue, and maybe a touch of a cadmium yellow, to make a colour that'll read as the lighter stem. And as I'm making it, I recognise that I need to put some white into that to make it really bright enough. And I'm going to create a ridge of that now. Scoop it up in a smaller brush. I would use a bigger brush. Well, this is okay. I'm just going to, if I had a bigger brush, what I'd be doing is printing this, but now I'm just laying it on nice and thick. And this reminds me that actually I wanted to lay on, I think I keep saying actually. This is reminding me, as I put on the light bits here, that I also wanted to, oh look, some of the ink is dripped down there. I think it's okay though. Tearful Gerbera. And what was I saying there? As I'm putting on the light and the stems, I'm reminded that I also wanted to bring light into the jug handle. And so I'll do that next. Here, I'm wanting to make the colour of the stem different from the colour of the curtain behind it there. So that's why I went back to the palette and put more yellow into the mix, because I felt there it was very similar to the curtain. So I put more yellow in again because it's still a bit too similar to the curtain behind. And I'll scoop it up and bring you closer. Scooped it up now, so I'm making this more green like that one is. My finger's getting all white paint on it. So I want to create this stem with the bright green that I have in my brush and make it go back a little bit further. There's actually a nice light falling on that leaf too, but it's a different shade of green to that. So So I'm going to create another green to that. And I'm liking the teary Gerbera, so I'm just going to let that drip bisect the stem for the moment anyway. Okay, and it works for me that it's darker, the stem is darker in front of the light grey and it's lighter in front of the dark grey. I think that adds a little bit of interest. But it seems important to me to get this brightness here. I'm going to use a touch of the cerulean blue this time. Cerulean blue looks like that, because I want to use that blue to make the colour of the brightness that's on this leaf here. It's got a bluey brightness about it. I think I've said to you I wouldn't normally use brushes this size. This is really quite a small brush, but I've not been able to find where my other burgundy brushes are. This one would be my preferred size really. Comes to a fine edge so I can print with the edge of it. But this one will work too. So I want to get the brightness on the leaf that sits in front of it. It's my dog sneezing, Maisie. I'm going to take her out for a walk now soon. I haven't heard her sneezing before. Oh, Maisie. So that's the bright, shiny bit of the leaf there. And then there's another bit on the other side of the middle stem. I'm assuming that it extends over the handle. It does now anyway. And then there was a little bit here that's turned away. So I made that with the cerulean blue. It's kind of a shinier, brighter, it's a shinier, bluer green that's on that. But after doing it, I want to bring in some more dark into that leaf as well. The other side of that leaf has more darkness to it, so I'm just picking up some ultramarine blue mostly. That's what I'm putting on here now to describe the edge of the leaf as it curves in. So that we know it's all the same leaf up here as well. That's all part of the same leaf there. Okay, and remember I was saying I wanted to brighten the handle up. So I'll do that with another, I'll get my dark brush, make it clean again. And then I'm going to put that light that's on the handle on there. You can see that the leaf isn't actually overlapping in the photo, if you can see the photo. But it's okay, it seems to work for me for it to overlap. I'm just going to use this side because it's cleaner. Scooping up the white paint, turning around and creating a white arc of light that hits the jug handle. And it comes down to the bottom of the jug as well. Down here there's a little bit of light that I think is helpful. When you do something in one area, it's often helpful to go to a different part of the same object and do something there too. And I see that there's light down here as well, so that's why I want to put some brightness there, and even maybe in the turn of the handle. Okay, now really it would be helpful to stand back a lot more than I am, so that I could assess the situation. But I've got myself ensconced here under my hot water bottle and the dirty sheet that I'm using for a rag on my knee, and I'm not saying this is a good idea, but that's what I'm doing. I'm stationed fairly firmly in my seat. I would recommend generally that we stand when we're painting, and you know, when you're comfortable though. Today it's a sitting down day. It's a bit more, whenever I see that there's more of that light green, I might as well place it. Looks like I've missed, well, yeah, I think that's a light green stem there too. I'm not very sure about the position of the stems, but I seem to be getting away with it. And in order to just complete the space the flowers occupy, I think I want to fill in some of this area. I'm just using cadmium and lemon yellow in oil paint, just to kind of give a cross-hatched flowery shape to that. I'm not really too concerned about making it exact, just getting the general shape. I'm going to use quite a bit now of yellow paint because of the lemon yellow, because it seems to me like as it gets higher up there, it gets brighter. The lemon yellow is the colour I want to use there. And really thickly applied paint will really explain. Gosh, I'm sorry. You're not seeing what I'm doing. So really thickly applied paint will explain the brighter petals. See how that's really buttery there, that paint? I want it to be a smooth shape so that it explains the petal rather than a hairy edged shape. So I'm doing my best to make that happen, to make the surface flatter and smoother while still thick. Sometimes your finger can do the business. And make sure that your finger or thumb doesn't have paint all over it already. A bit more here as well. Okay. Now I was saying to one of the ladies on the course there this morning, she suggested, or she just asked me if I was going to do any more in the background across the page. And I noticed as she said it then that there was this lovely shape behind the Gerbera that I thought I could sculpt the more foreshortened petals of the Gerbera on this side. So I'm just going to make that shape with grey. When I half close my eyes, it's generally the colour of the background that's there. So I'm just going to do that rather than try and do all the individual bits of foliage I'm seeing in there as well. I want to find the shape of where the background stops and the brightness of the petals begins. And even on the shadow side, the petals are brighter than the background. Now, the stem will be in here somewhere because it extends from there. It correlates with that stem. But I can put that in after. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter colour. I don't want it to jar so much with that colour above it. Yeah, it's just creating a bit more of the shape of the flower that I'm after. And it is quite dark there, so I leave that. And I might end up putting a bit more. I want to make that a bit more green. So the cadmium yellow mixed with the ultramarine blue is giving me a green that I might use for the foliage underneath the petal here. Yeah, so there's talk of getting a new tripod. Rose has suggested that, and she was suggesting a few other things too to make this more pleasing. I mean, I love this. I love doing what I do, but I want you to be able to clearly see what I'm doing as well. And so that's our plan, to find a way of getting a new tripod for me so that my time isn't taken up with farting about with the camera the whole time. Okay, I wasn't sure whether to move that flower stem. It seems that it needs to be over here a bit more, or even just to introduce a new one. And just introduce the new one, and where it meets the flower. That's okay. And then a little bit of the more greenish yellow, the dull yellow I'm using, and where I can, because I've got a limited brushes, I don't want to start to mix again and again, to have to wash them again and again. So I'm ending up making colours, seeing colours that I can make with what I've got on the brush. And this kind of brownish colour, I think, would be a good way to describe the petals that are underneath here, darker, coming across. Maybe a little bit too dark. I'll make a start with the dark, and I can dab it off if it is too dark. Yeah, like just dabbing it off will make it read as lighter already. But again, make sure your fingers are clean enough for that dabbing effect. You have to find different parts of your hand. Okay, so that's just lightened it enough for me. And I'm using the brush like scumbling, pushing it on instead of laying it on thickly. I'm just scumbling it on lightly, lifting it off almost as I'm putting it on, so that it doesn't read as too dark in the next layer. And I find other places too to put it, that dark colour, so that it doesn't read as an odd single shape of dark. And there will be petals that are really quite dark, like over here, as a way of explaining the very bright ones. It's necessary to have the dark ones in position too. Okay. Yeah, I do wish I had a nice bright orange oil paint. I could use it with my finger. I think that's all that's needed here now, is just a really dark, bright sweep. Maybe what I could do, if I can't find what I could do, is to use some bright chalk pastel. No, I'm not sure how bright. Yeah, you see, that doesn't read as very bright either. So the brightest thing I could use really would be either collage or maybe even the red, cadmium red on its own. My baby finger applying it. Let's see what that's like. I mean, it's not the brightness I'm after, but it is the consistency, I think, and the direction for that petal, the size of that petal. I couldn't do another one up that way. Well, that's okay. Do you know what would be good is the centre. If I make that centre with oil pastel, I think. So what that looks like it needs is a kind of elastoplast colour of oil pastel. And I don't know if I've actually got that colour. So what I might do is combine a couple of colours to make it. It's almost this colour, but this is a bit too dark. It's a lot too dark, really. So I'm going to put the white on it. Lily. Sorry. Don't know if you heard that. Little burp there. And I'm going to put yellow on top of that as well, because I think it needs to be, as I say, that elastoplast colour is what I was looking for. Getting it. I think we're getting it. And the thing, of course, that needs to happen now is for that significant dark splodge in the middle. And I think I'm just going to use, again, a dark oil pastel. This looks like it's almost black. And if I put my thumb over it, it'll stop it being too black, because my thumb's dirty. Alright, what about that now? Yeah, I think that's okay. I want to bring more of that red in though, to meet the centre. Could really do with standing black, guys. So I'd say a lot of this now could be given a little breathing space. Might mean that it's a good time for me to stop, actually. I can always see it when the phone and the paper aren't there as well, and just judge the whole thing. Why don't I lift it off so you can see as well a bit? Yeah. Just take off the phone there. And I'll bring you a little bit closer as well, so that you can see what I've been doing a bit more clearly. Before I bring you closer, oh, it's nearly 50 minutes, my goodness. Well done if you've stayed the course. Before I do that, bringing you closer thing into that, I want to say thank you for tuning in. You see, this is another thing now. If I was a little bit more tuned in, I wouldn't have the window behind me when I'm talking to you, so that you could actually see me. There we are. It's still quite dark. It's getting dark, you see. It's getting dark. It's nearly nighttime again. So thanks very much for joining me. My name is Anya Devine, and I'm coming to you here from near Edinburgh, and you're more than welcome to join me for the next one. Sometimes they're 5 minutes, sometimes they're 50 minutes and longer, and you're welcome to speed up and do whatever suits you. But I'm delighted to be painting in company, and thank you for being that company. And give it a go yourselves. So now I'm going to bring the painting over and show you what happened. Hopefully you'll be able to see it clearly up a bit closer, and then linger over the paint marks a little bit so you can see the thickness of the oil paint there, and how it sits in front of, how it nicely sits in front of the acrylic paint. And that light on the handle is quite a clean thing to do with the oil as well over the acrylic, and that leaf extending over the jug handle. Okay. So there we have it. Thanks very much. And see you next time. Cue Lily. All right, all the best. Have a look at the links below if you want to know more about me.
Have a look at the links below because you want to like my name.
Bye.
Bye.